Right, welcome back to the channel everyone. So today I'm going to talk about my own BSA Goldstar, plans for the bike, but we're also going to cover what's happening with BSA as a company, which is particularly important. I've just been to Motorcycle Live. I've kind of got a good understanding and a good feeling of where they are and where things are going for the brand. So first things first, I'm keeping my Highland Green BSA Goldstar. I know some people wrote in the comments, keep the BSA, keep the BSA. I'm keeping it. I did have the option to trade in this bike against any new bike that the Completely Motorcycles group were offering. My consideration was the Triumph 400 Scrambler. I decided against that bike. I feel when you get on the bike, it's not as special as perhaps it looks in the marketing pictures. It just feels like another bike to me. And perhaps my love for the BSA is, you know, kind of an emotional connection to the bike. I don't get that connection when I sit on the Triumph. So it's no to the Triumph and it's yes to keeping this BSA as a long-termer for the channel. So I'm very happy with that. And as far as the interest of the bike goes with you guys, the viewers, I found something really interesting. When I was looking at the audience retention data for some of the videos I do, one of the recent ones, I'd included clips of a camera mounted here and I was riding the BSA just to make it a little bit more interesting between the cuts of this piece to camera. Audience retention data is basically a line going down from your perspective like this as more and more people drop off and click away from your video as you're talking. So you never get all the people who click to start the video watching at the end, and usually you get 35% or whatever, about a third in it for the long run and watch you all the way to the end. If you're very boring, you'll get like way worse retention data, and YouTube uses the retention data to promote your video. So if it's a good video that's got high retention data, then YouTube will suggest it to people and you get more views. Now a viral video like from Mr. Beast or someone like that will have 80% plus retention data, so everyone will watch it all the way through to the end. Just kind of a man's presenting about a bike, I won't get the same retention data as that. But what I did notice is as the graph was going slowly down as I was talking, there were little bumps and peaks where it was increasing, and they were correlating with the time when I was showing the bike being ridden. So either that means I'm quite boring as a presenter, or it means people are loving watching the BSA in motion, watching it out on the open road. So I found that quite interesting, and I thought, oh, maybe I'll do some more on-bike footage. And I thought that form of motovlogging was actually sort of dead and buried because it's so saturated. But I might get back out on the bike and film with the camera mounted here. So going forward, I'm probably going to try and include some clips of the bike riding and me on the bike and bits and bobs, because I think it's made the video more interesting. And in fact, the data actually backs that up. So let me know what you think about that, whether you like a bit of a mix of on-bike footage, because I thought that format was dead and buried, but perhaps I'm wrong. Let's talk about BSA itself now as a company. So I went to Motorcycle Live, I talked to some of the guys on the stand about BSA, where it's going, that kind of thing. And overall, I think that despite a slightly troubled start, BSA are now onto kind of plain sailing. I think things are going well for them as a company. Now, what are the sales looking like? I think in spring, when the actual Goldstar was available to buy, there was a build-up, pent-up demand. The pipeline was full. So use some sales terminology here. Pipeline was full, and then it was very quickly drained by new customers purchasing bikes as they were made available, as the first shipment came through post-COVID, post the global shipping crisis. So in spring, we were looking at about 300 bikes sold, and then in summer, it was another 200. Now, those two numbers are government DVLA statistics, so there's no debating. That's not me guessing. That's what I've researched. From talking to BSA, I suspect another 100 were sold in autumn, so you're looking at 600 all told. I don't know the autumn data because there's a delay in government statistics. You can't get that. I'll have to rely on what BSA say for that one. So, but I think that 600 bikes in year one, in fact it's about 6 months, is a good showing. They've had strong competition. Obviously the classic bike sector is packed full of different manufacturers all vying for market share. They've done 600 bikes, which I think is great. I think focusing on one model and one platform is probably the right thing to do going forward. Just stabilize a little bit. There were some customer issues, warranty claims when these bikes were launched. I mean, the EML light, for example, people mentioned that was coming on. I got up today, it was 6 degrees, turned the bike on, no EML light. My Royal Enfield Meteor used to flash that EML light whenever I went out in cold weather. So even though what you read online is not necessarily the actual owner's experience. My bike, I mean, maybe I'm lucky, but I haven't had any issues with it at all. But nevertheless, for those who have had issues, I think it's fair for BSA to take a lot of care in supporting those owners. And warranty claims are being addressed by dealers in a matter of days in a lot of cases. There will be exceptions to the rule. I'm not going to say everyone's had a perfect experience, but for a new bike where there has been an issue, the dealers and Lucas Distribution and BSA, I think, have worked quite closely to resolve those issues quickly. I think the one thing that's probably driven those sales is the aesthetics. Obviously you've got the brand identity there. BSA is very historical. People have an affinity for this manufacturer, the badge on the side, the classic status, but it is the look of the bike which has sold a lot. The Bingley Wheeler, he commented on one of my recent videos and just said that he'd reviewed again the Goldstar, and he'd said it is better looking than the Interceptor, and he said he was subject to so many personal attacks. I'm going to go on the record and say I think it's better looking than the Interceptor. When I first reviewed the bike, I did say they traded blows. I've always tried to be fair to both bikes. There are parts of the BSA that aren't perhaps as nice as they could be, or are built to or manufactured to a price, like the engine casings. However, this bike, side by side to the Interceptor, I think this bike is better looking. It looks more classic. It's got more of that 50s and 60s authentic vibe to it than perhaps the Interceptor does. The weight's also lower down, which contributes to the aesthetic, but it also, I think, makes it quite planted and stable on the road. The Interceptor, the weight's a little bit high up. So in Q3, the sales numbers show that BSA sold one bike less than the Interceptor. So talk about that for trading blows. Anyone who says that this bike is no threat to Royal Enfield, that's what they used to say. Royal Enfield got nothing to worry about. The fact this bike sold the same number as the Interceptor in that quarter shows that this bike is taking market share from Royal Enfield. But you see in the sales that the Super Meteor has really taken up the baton for Royal Enfield's 650 platform. So I would say probably a more relevant comparison would be if you're going to buy a Goldstar or a Super Meteor 650. And that will be an interesting comparison. I might actually do a video about it, but I think the Super Meteor's got real quality, and if you come up close, the fit and finish is probably better than on the BSA. The actual look of the bike from 10 meters away, see, I'm swapping back to metric now just to keep everybody guessing. 10 meters away, actually does the Goldstar look better than the Super Meteor? Maybe it does, but close up the Super Meteor is extremely refined, and that's, I think, a marker where Royal Enfield are going. Okay, let's talk about market expansion. Obviously, we're serving the UK market and Ireland. That was the first market the BSA moved into. They subsequently onboarded, I think it's Pierre Mobility in France to serve as a distribution network and onboard dealers in that geography, so you can buy a BSA in France now. It's America where a lot of the comments are centered on. A lot of people from the US want to know when they can get a BSA there. BSA did suggest to me on the stands that they are working on opening up the US market. I think it's a good move. Obviously there's a big market for British bikes in that region, and also it's a whatever the term is now, higher tier, well, it's the biggest economy in the world, isn't it? People have got money to spend. People are affluent consumers, generally speaking, in that market. So they'll be able to import this bike and sell it for like $9,500 or whatever they want. That's price point, it's just plucked out of the air, and it'll probably sell. So US market is probably a good one, which they are working on getting into. The other thing which they're considering doing is the 350. Now, I got mixed answers on the 350. They were really kind of cagey about it. Obviously, a 350 single would go head to head with Royal Enfield's 350 range. The Royal Enfield range has been ridiculously successful. Like it's so well selling, and Royal Enfield know exactly what they're doing. They bring in the Meteor, and then what they'll do is they'll let that have its run. All the buyers will pile into the Meteor. Then in comes the Classic. Meteor owners will trade in, perhaps for a Classic. Perhaps new buyers go in for a Classic. That peaks in sales. Then the Hunter, which is slightly different look and feel, but it's still bringing up the sales. There's people who own all three. Royal Enfield are very, very clever about repackaging a platform and getting the same people to rebuy into it. And then finally, you've got special editions of the Meteor, the Classic. Oh, you've got the Bullet as well, another example of them doing it. So this 350 single is just so strong in revenue generation for Royal Enfield. I think if BSA did a similar thing, just a smaller kind of condensed version of the Goldstar, a bit lighter, a bit more affordable, some of the branding and kind of design ethos kind of shrunk down and put onto the 350. Let's just let this car go past. It could be a real good sales success. I mean, you've got strong competition, but that hasn't stopped BSA trading blows in the 650 level of engine. What some of the people said on the stand was contradictory though. The marketing from BSA itself just said, we're not speculating on future models. BSA is a 650cc company, and that's the kind of final word. I mean, that's a direct answer, but then I did ask a direct question. So let's see, is a 350 in the works? It probably is, but they're not revealing anything about it, certainly to me, at this time. The bike, of course, that comes up in the comments is the Scrambler. Now, unfortunately, the Scrambler was a concept bike. It was a bike that was done to showcase the engineering ability of BSA. There are no plans to put that motorcycle into production. So if you like the Scrambler, unfortunately it was a one-off concept bike, and BSA I think have learned a little bit from this in the fact that they put this bike out there and then expectations in the market were that they were going to bring that to a full production, and it's not the case. So if you are interested in the Scrambler, take it from me, there are no plans to produce this bike. You're looking at the Goldstar, the new Phantom Black Goldstar, and potentially a 350 if you want to get involved with BSA. Talking of people getting involved with BSA, big social media personalities are not only reporting positively on this bike. So for example, TMF said it's a really good bike, he really likes it. But some of the bigger channels, like Freddie Dobbs, who's got the BSA Goldstar in his shortlist for his channel bike. That's a bike to replace his sort of now famous or infamous with its mechanical issues, but famous for him, 865 Bonneville. He's thinking of replacing that bike, and one of the bikes which is potentially on his list is the Goldstar. The other is the Classic 350, and the other is the Triumph Speedmaster. Stuart Fillingham, who reports on Royal Enfield, very knowledgeable on Royal Enfield and those range of bikes. Also, he's experienced with the Triumphs. He's thinking about getting a Goldstar for the channel because he thinks that the dealers are dealing very well with customers, and that Hitchcocks, who develop a lot of RE aftermarket parts, they've brought a BSA in-house. So it shows that aftermarket is going to now kind of come on board with BSA. It's another good sign, it's another positive indicator. Mr. Darty and the Old Man, another really good channel for retro bikes. They're also kind of supportive of the BSA. So here's me kind of doing my small scale videos about this bike, which I really like, and I think it's just an amazing machine. But you've got some of the bigger names also thinking of coming on board, and if someone like Freddie had a Goldstar, it would just change the game. It'd be for BSA, it'd be a great thing. And I actually think they should support perhaps more of the social media personalities and try and engage them a little bit more, because that's going to get the viewership or the awareness and visibility of the product out to a huge number of people. So it'd definitely be a good move. Alright guys, I'm going to end the video there. Please let me know what you think in the comments about BSA, Royal Enfield, different bikes, sales, what's going to be successful, what isn't. And yeah, just let me know your feedback. I'll be pleased to hear it. Thank you very much for listening. I'll catch you in the next one.